Hello, this is Tiffany, the WIC dietitian and lactation counselor. Today, I would like to talk about what to expect with breastfeeding while you're in the hospital. So there's not a whole lot you have to take with you to the hospital related to breastfeeding. When you're packing that hospital bag, all you need to put in there is a comfortable bra, preferably one with no underwire, and if you have one, a boppy. If you don't have one, not every woman loves them, so I would suggest practicing with some pillows before running out and buying one. But that's really it. So comfortable clothes, especially a comfortable bra, and a boppy. When you arrive at the hospital, your nurse will most likely ask you how you plan on feeding the baby. We recommend telling the nurse that you plan on exclusively breastfeeding. Exclusively breastfeeding means that you aren't planning on using any supplementation, so no formula added into the routine, because it can really impact your milk supply if you start supplementation too soon. So in the last video, I discussed how your body makes milk. When you skip a feeding, there are proteins sent out that tell your body to make less milk. So if you're adding in supplementation too early, those proteins can impact your milk supply so much so that down the road, you may not have the option to do both. You might have to strictly rely on formula, even if you want to continue breastfeeding. So instead, starting out exclusively breastfeeding, building a good milk supply, and then deciding if you want to add any supplementation down the road is what we recommend doing. Once you tell your nurse that you plan on exclusively breastfeeding, she or he knows not to use any bottles or pacifiers while you're in the hospital, because those too can interfere with your milk supply. Next, you're going to experience labor. Hopefully it's easy, baby just comes right out. But after baby is born, they are going to place baby directly on your chest as long as the baby is stable. Everything that they need to do, they'll do it while baby's on your chest. This is called the golden hour, and it's that first hour after birth because babies are super alert in this first hour. So usually what happens is they have a birth cry, then they kind of lay around on your chest, and then you'll get to experience the birth crawl. And I'll link a video about the birth crawl so you can see what that looks like. But with the birth crawl, they'll start to move their knees in a crawling motion to work their way towards your breast. They'll also start to bob their head kind of up and down, almost like they're looking at you, and they're just trying to find the breast to latch onto. They were born to breastfeed, so if you just let them hang out doing skin to skin, they will eventually work themselves over, maybe with a little help, and they will latch on. They will self-attach. If you're having a hard time getting baby latched on, just ask the nurse to give you a hand. Most of the time they are trained in lactation and can get baby latched on with you. This is also really good just for their health and for bonding with them. So doing skin to skin helps regulate their body temperature, their blood sugar, their heart rate, and it's just a great time for you to bond with your baby. So we recommend trying to make sure that it's as minimal amount of people in the room as possible so there's not a ton of distractions. So you, baby, a couple support people, and any necessary medical staff. Anyone more than that, it's gonna be overwhelming because they're gonna be taking pictures or trying to hold the baby. So just make sure in that golden hour, that baby is placed right on your chest and it's just the two of you that get to hang out. If you have a C-section, things are obviously going to look a little bit different. So with C-sections, you have a curtain dividing you from the incision. So instead of placing baby up and down on your chest, they will try to place baby sideways, and so you can still get that skin-to-skin contact and experience breastfeeding in the first hour if you're alert. If you are unable to hold the baby here or you're not alert, then having a partner or a support person do skin to skin in the meantime is very helpful for baby. And then once you're able to, go ahead and do the skin to skin and try to get the baby latched on. After that first hour, babies actually get really sleepy. And so in the first 24 hours, we don't see as many feedings as we would in a typical day. So generally with babies, we recommend feeding them 8 to 12 separate times a day. But in the first 24 hours, it's actually usually half that. So we see a good 4 to 6 feedings in the first 24 hours. That's because their bellies are really tiny, they're tired from being born, and sometimes they might have even swallowed a little amniotic fluid, so their bellies are already full. So remember, in the first 24 hours, aim for a good 4 to 6 feedings. During your hospital visit, we recommend doing rooming in, which literally means that you have the baby in the room with you at all times. This helps you get to know your baby's feeding cues, which we'll talk about in a further video. Usually after the first 24 hours, babies start to eat a little bit more frequently. Sometimes they can have periods of cluster feeding on that second night. Basically what's happening is the baby is starting to be a little bit more alert. They're wondering where they are. They want to be able to hear mom's heartbeat because that's what they're familiar with. Their stomachs are starting to be able to expand, so they're getting a little bit hungrier. So usually they have a lot of feeds back to back in that second night. It's a very good thing for your milk supply because it helps build it for the future. Every time your baby latches on, you get that breast stimulation, you get that milk production, and that helps with your future production as well. So even though it can be frustrating when they are cluster feeding on that second night, remember it's so good for your milk supply. And also, if the latch is not comfortable, if you have any pain at all, make sure that you're contacting a lactation counselor as soon as possible because that can also impact your milk supply. So if you have a comfortable latch, you're breastfeeding on their cues, your mature milk will come in and you'll provide plenty of breast milk for your baby. So that's what it looks like when you stay in the hospital. And again, if you have any questions, please contact your local WIC office. Have a good day.